On day 63, Ricky Megee was lying face down in the dirt. His body had stopped obeying him. His lips were split open. His stomach had been empty for days. And for the first time in more than 2 months, he believed he was going to die. There was nobody to call, nobody searching nearby, nobody coming to save him. Just endless wilderness stretching beyond every horizon. But what happened next is almost impossible to believe, because 8 days later, this same man would walk out alive. To understand how that's possible, we need to go back to the moment his nightmare began. And trust me, it gets much worse. Just 63 days earlier, Ricky Megee wasn't fighting for his life. He was an ordinary traveler driving through one of the most remote regions on Earth, the Australian Outback, a place so vast that entire countries could disappear inside it, a place where a single mistake can become a death sentence. At the time, Ricky had no idea that within days, everything he knew would vanish. According to Ricky, the nightmare began after he accepted a drink from a stranger while traveling. What happened afterward remains controversial. Some people questioned parts of his story. Others believed every word. But one fact has never been disputed. Somehow, Ricky woke up completely alone in the wilderness. No vehicle, no supplies, no explanation, no idea where he was. At first, he thought he was dreaming. The heat was unbearable. The silence felt unnatural. And every direction looked exactly the same. There were no roads, no buildings, no signs of civilization. Only endless red earth stretching toward the horizon. Then panic arrived, the kind of panic that destroys people. Because Ricky understood something terrifying. Nobody knew where he was, and nobody was coming. Most people think starvation is what kills survivors. It isn't. The first enemy is almost always dehydration. The Australian sun showed no mercy. Temperatures soared higher with each passing hour. Every breath felt hot. Every step drained energy. By the end of the first day, Ricky's throat felt like sandpaper. His lips had begun cracking. His tongue felt swollen. And the worst part? He still hadn't found water. The next morning brought no relief. The heat became even more brutal. Then something appeared in the distance. A lake, or at least it looked like one. Hope surged through Ricky's body. He stumbled toward it, hour after hour, step after painful step. But the closer he got, the farther it seemed. Finally, he realized the truth. It wasn't water. It was a mirage. The desert was playing tricks on him. And now he had wasted precious energy chasing an illusion. The Outback had delivered its first lesson. Hope could be dangerous. By day 3, Ricky was desperate. His body was beginning to shut down. His thoughts became slower, his movements weaker. Then, just when he thought he couldn't continue, he found something. A muddy waterhole. The water looked disgusting. Insects floated on the surface. The smell was awful. But Ricky wasn't thinking about cleanliness anymore. He was thinking about survival. He dropped to his knees and drank. The muddy water tasted terrible, but it was life. For the first time in days, he felt hope. Unfortunately, the Outback wasn't finished with him yet, because now a new enemy was waiting. Hunger. The human body can survive weeks without food, but surviving isn't the same as functioning. Every day, without calories, made Ricky weaker. At first, he searched desperately for anything edible. Fruit, roots, seeds, anything. Most days he found nothing. Then, one afternoon, he noticed a grasshopper sitting on a branch. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have looked twice. Now he saw food. He caught it, stared at it, then ate it. That moment changed everything. The rules of normal life no longer applied. Pride disappeared. Comfort disappeared. Only survival mattered. Soon insect became a regular part of his diet. Grasshoppers, beetles, anything that contained even a small amount of energy. Sometimes he gagged. Sometimes he nearly vomited. But he kept eating, because the alternative was death. Weeks passed. The physical suffering was terrible, but the mental suffering was worse. 4 days at a time, Ricky saw no one. Not a single person. Not a single vehicle. Nothing. The silence became overwhelming. Human beings are not designed to live completely alone. Eventually, Ricky started talking to himself. At first, it was simple, short conversations, words of encouragement. But over time, those conversations became longer, more detailed. Sometimes he caught himself speaking aloud for minutes without realizing it. Then came something even more disturbing. Voices. One afternoon, Ricky heard someone calling his name. He jumped to his feet, heart racing. Hello. No answer. Again, he heard it. His name, clear as day. He searched the area desperately, but nobody was there. The voice existed only inside his exhausted mind. The isolation was beginning to break him. Around the 5th week, Ricky made a discovery that changed everything. A swamp. To most people, it looked disgusting. To Ricky, it looked like paradise. Water, frogs, insects, life. For the first time since becoming lost, he had a reliable source of survival. Instead of wandering endlessly, he decided to stay. Using branches and whatever materials he could find, Ricky built a crude shelter. It wasn't comfortable, it wasn't pretty, but it offered protection. For the first time in over a month, he had something that resembled a home. The swamp became his lifeline. Every morning followed the same routine. Find water, catch food, repair shelter, survive, day after day, week after week. The routine kept him alive, but another challenge was approaching, and this one would nearly finish him. The storm arrived without warning. Dark clouds swallowed the sky. Powerful winds tore across the landscape. Rain fell in sheets. Within hours, Ricky's shelter was being ripped apart. Branches snapped. Mud flooded the ground. The fire he depended on disappeared. Everything he had worked for was suddenly under attack. He spent the entire night fighting to protect what little he had. By sunrise, the damage was devastating. His shelter was destroyed. His food supply was gone. His body was exhausted. For the first time in weeks, he felt truly defeated. And yet somehow, he kept moving. Because that's what survival becomes after a certain point. Not confidence, not courage, habit. You survive because you survived the day before. And quitting feels harder than continuing. This was the moment from the beginning. The moment Ricky thought the fight was over. After more than 2 months alone, his body was failing. He had lost a tremendous amount of weight. His muscles had nearly disappeared. Every movement required effort. Every breath felt difficult. He collapsed face down in the dirt. The same moment you saw at the start of this story. For the first time, he truly believed he wouldn't survive. The Outback had taken almost everything. His strength, his energy, his certainty, almost his life. But then something happened. Something that changed everything. A few days later, Ricky noticed something unusual. Signs of human activity. Tiny clues. Easy to miss, but enough to spark hope. At first, he thought he was imagining things. After all, hallucinations had become common. But this time was real. Somewhere nearby, people existed. The problem was reaching them. Ricky's body was barely functioning. Every step felt impossible. Yet he continued, because now there was something worth moving toward. Hope. And sometimes hope is more powerful than food. More powerful than strength. More powerful than fear. On day 71, everything changed. A farmer traveling through the remote region noticed signs that something wasn't right. Curious, he investigated. What he found shocked him. Standing before him was a man who looked more like a ghost than a human being. Sunburned, emaciated, covered in dirt, barely able to stand, but alive, against all odds. Alive. After 71 days in one of the harshest environments on Earth, Ricky Megee had survived. Not because he was the strongest man alive, not because he possessed special skills, but because every single day when the Outback gave him a reason to quit, he found another reason to keep going. And in the end, that made all the difference.